Chapter 5, Corporate and IT Governance. This is Part 3 of 4, IT Governance Frameworks. The learning outcomes include: explain how IT, the organization, and IT governance are all interrelated and how they must all work together toward common goals for business success. Evaluate how you may improve your chances of organizational success if you use effective IT governance practices. Compare and contrast 3 frameworks for IT governance: ITIL or ITIL, COBIT, and PDCA, noting the advantages and disadvantages of each. If you remember from the overview in the previous section, business and IT both feed into IT governance, and decisions are made based on the business strategy and the IT capabilities while ensuring a reliable, safe, and secure experience for stakeholders. There are several frameworks that can be used to establish IT governance policies. We will look at 3 of them: ITIL or ITIL or Information Technology Infrastructure Library, COBIT, Control Objectives for Information and Related Technology, and PDCA Plan-Do-Check-Act. Starting with ITIL, which is the IT Infrastructure Library, this was a method, a set of guidelines that was first started by the UK government. It's a method of standardizing, integrating, and managing the delivery of IT services within the organization. It has a 5-phase service lifecycle that we'll look at on the next slide. And there are levels of training and certification if you choose to pursue those within your organization or personally. I encourage you at this point to pause the PowerPoint presentation and take a look at a simple explanation of ITIL on a YouTube video. So looking at the 5 phases of the ITIL process lifecycle, you've got strategy, design, transition, operation, and continual improvement. With the strategy, you look and make sure that you're offering an appropriate portfolio of IT services. You have a plan in place to use technology to manage your financial performance. You manage how well IT delivers on what it's supposed to do, and you make sure that you have updated products. Then you move to the design phase, which is also similar to the product management stage. Here you look and try to plan for capacity. Do you need different levels of IT services at different times of the year? For instance, Amazon, UPS, FedEx, and the U.S. Postal Service have different capacity needs during the holiday season when they're busier than at other times. You also look at how do you make sure your IT services are available as needed to those who use them, internal and your customers and your stakeholders. How do you manage your IT security? How do you make sure you can continue in case of a disaster? We'll talk more about that later. How do you make sure that you meet the needs of your users, internal, external demand? And how do you manage what services you offer? Then you move into a transition or development phase, and here's where you plan to make sure as things change, you are able to move along with them. You make sure that you have the resources that you need, and you have a plan for how to make changes. You also have a way to measure your service to test it to see what good it is. Further, you have a way to manage knowledge within the organization, both current, previous, and future knowledge. You have a management strategy for deploying new technology, and you have a method to evaluate this. Then you move to the operation or support phase. Here's where you have a method of recording incidents that happen to provide your IT service. You have a plan in place to manage things that occur, events, which may be good or bad, but you have a way to respond to events that do occur. You're able to meet your user needs and requests. You are able to identify and manage problems that occur. You also have a method in place to manage how people access and use the IT services that are needed, how applications are updated and maintained, and patches are installed as needed, all in the overall goal of having a good strategy, a sound strategy for IT operation and technical management. Then you move to the final phase of the ITIL process lifecycle, which is continual improvement. This is the quality phase. It's where you look at your processes in place and see if you can do better. And there is an improvement process that you can look at if you want to get more involved in the ITIL process or the ITIL lifecycle. You look at business questions, return on investment, managing your IT services, and reporting on how well you're doing accurately, and in some stated time you're reporting on how well you're doing. Some of that's dependent on regulations, laws, policies, and so forth. Now we move to Control Objectives for Information and Related Technology, or the COBIT framework. This is also a set of guidelines. The goal of COBIT is to make sure you align your IT resources with your business objectives, we know that, with the quality standards that your business expects, within the concept of a monetary control system, and while meeting the security needs of the organization. This is maintained by the IT Governance Institute, and you can take a look at their website here if you'd like more information. And it does provide guidance for a set of processes and categories for how you can go about IT governance and IT management. Looking a little more closely at the principles of COBIT, first is meeting stakeholders. The COBIT does use a set of maturity levels, and these are evaluated on a scale from 0 to 5, used for each process that you might evaluate under the underlying IT governance structure. You then, based on the scale and how well you score, you use that information to choose which processes should we focus on and which ones can wait until later. They aren't as critical. If you look at an example here, you have from 0, which is a non-existent process, to optimized, you're doing awesome at that process and it needs no improvement. You do this for each process. You put where your enterprise currently is. In this example, the enterprise is at level 2. It's also important to understand the industry average, which you can see from this chart. The industry average is higher than the enterprise average. And you may have your enterprise target, which in this case is just under 4 for this process. You do that for each process and determine where do I need to focus my IT resources. Now let's move to the PDCA method, which is Plan-Do-Check-Act. Now this process is a continuous improvement process of looking at IT processes. So you look at the standard, what are you currently doing? So, and then you plan from there to make it better. Then you do make it better. You check that you did make it better, and you react or act proactively, and try to make the process better. You do this with each process, perhaps using the framework the COBIT framework that looks from 0 to 5. How well are we doing? How well is the industry doing? And how important is this process for us to succeed? This is a proven model that's been used over time. It's applied to a targeted process or a set of targeted processes, and it tries to make processes continually better over time. I encourage you at this point to pause the PowerPoint presentation and take a look at the YouTube video on PDCA. You can use, as I mentioned at the beginning, all of the frameworks together in whole or in part. So you could use PDCA for one process within a COBIT or ITIL framework that you're using for all of the processes in your organization, and you can use pieces of each of them as appropriate for your situation.
To summarize, IT governance is developed based on business strategies and IT capabilities, with business driving IT strategy to achieve organizational success. IT governance helps ensure a reliable, safe, and secure experience for stakeholders while improving chances of organizational success. We looked at 3 IT governance frameworks, although combinations of the 3 and/or use of other frameworks may be appropriate in your organization. ITIL, Information Technology Infrastructure Library, COBIT, Control Objectives for Information and Related Technology, and PDCA Plan-Do-Check-Act. Each framework has its advantages and disadvantages, and organizations should select the option that works for their business models.